Hi, I'm Unruly Anime. The story begins as the popular kids at school make their stuck-up walk through the hallways as everyone gossips about them.
今日もかっこいい。
やっぱ付き合ってんのかな。
悔しいけどお似合いだよな。
さあ、ついに我々生徒会の正念場だ。
Sujun is the student council president's superstar, and some unpopular guy named Kazuki is her little sidekick who's also the vice president. Some people just turn out to be the center of attention, but our average Joe, the ordinary protagonist, doesn't consider himself one of these people. His name is Ken, and this self-hating guy just thinks of himself as a forgettable, run-of-the-mill high school student. The most exciting adventure in this dude's vanilla-flavored life is returning some dumb pigeon babies to their nest. Deep down, Ken was always hoping for an extraordinary life. Luckily for him, he is the protagonist of this anime. For now, it's raining, and Ken doesn't have an umbrella. Ken's evil side showed itself for a second as he contemplated taking someone else's, but this typical good guy decided against it, fearing the beginning of a life of crime over a $5 umbrella. This proves to be a pretty stupid decision, as he ends up waiting for hours. Sujun appears out of nowhere and explains that all students are required to leave. This guy really is forgettable, as he decides to just run home in the rain, but Sujun stops him. It would look bad for the student council to just watch him get soaked in the rain like a loser, so Kazuki arrives and lends him his spare umbrella. Ken was certain that Kazuki didn't even know of his useless existence, and was even more surprised when Kazuki seemed to be a nice guy. They offer to all walk home together, and Sujun points out that it must be fate that they met. Ken's nerdy mind goes right to video games, as he thinks of this moment as suddenly walking home with two of the most popular kids at school. He almost ruins this marvelous moment as he says that everyone in school will be jealous. But luckily they didn't hear his utterly embarrassing comment on their little walk. Ken tells Kazuka that he didn't expect him to be so nice because he only ever sees this playboy flirting with the ladies. Kazuki only talks to the girls out of pity, and Sujun roasts him by saying that he likes talking to boys better anyway. Sujun is even more unapproachable for our shy protagonist, as she is at the top of her class in all subjects and in all sports. Ken glazes her up even more and points out that she's also beautiful inside and out. Ken, acting like some kind of dumb gossip news reporter, finally comes out and asks if they are dating. Since everyone at school talks about it, the walk gets pretty awkward, but they explain that they only spend so much time together because they are on the student council. Ken apologizes for the incredibly stupid question that he definitely should not have asked, but Sujun doesn't mind since it's better than talking behind their back. Their incredibly snooze-inducing conversation continues as the three of them talk about what they will do when they graduate. None of these dummies have a plan yet. Sujun is already in her third year, but she has a huge problem. She still hasn't found what she wants to do, and she immediately completes any goal she sets for herself, seemingly foreshadowing what's about to happen. Sujun explains that she feels like she doesn't belong in this world, and Ken was shocked. The two of them are totally opposite people, but he understands that feeling. This boring conversation has me wishing that they would just kiss and get it over with. But they all stop when the two student council members hear bells ringing. The ringing gets louder and louder, but Ken doesn't hear a single thing.
何の音ですかね。
どうしたの？
Just as Ken approaches the others, a magic circle appears on the ground, and he wonders if it's a gate to another world.
魔法陣？なんだよこれ。何かの撮影か。まさか。
Instead of being terrified, Sujun looks like a psycho and wonders if Ken thinks they will find magic, monsters, and heroes in this other world. Ken is shocked that she's into that kind of stuff, but time is up, and they are taken away. Ken eventually wakes up and finds that they are sitting in front of a king. The boys are rightfully terrified and cautious, but something is wrong with Sujun's brain, as she only feels excitement. King Lloyd has the most basic name ever and introduces himself as Lloyd. Kazuka wants to skip the introductions, and the man wants to know why Lloyd brought them there. Lloyd keeps his hot-headed guard from slicing Kazuki into pieces for his disrespect and reveals that he is king. As if that wasn't painfully obvious already, the kids are still shocked by this, except for Sujun, who is having the time of her life. Lloyd then reveals that they were summoned to be heroes, making all of Suzune's dreams come true. 2 years ago, this world was attacked by the King of Demons and his army. They managed to drive them off, but the Demon Lord's power has been growing. As a last resort, they called forth accomplished individuals from another world who could confront the Demon Lord using a forbidden ritual known as hero summoning. Ken tries to remind the excited Suzune that they're having a serious conversation, and Kazuki goes all crazy. He doesn't care about heroes or demon lords, and is just furious that they were summoned without consent. He refuses to join since he is not the protagonist, and he demands that they get sent back to their world. Unfortunately for this side character, the hero summoning only works in one direction, so they can't go back. Kazuki still wants to go back to flirting with all the ladies back home, but the king apologizes as they are desperate for help. Kazuki's whining marathon pushes the guards to finally quiet him down by threatening to turn him from a side character to a non-existent one. Ken calms the hothead down, and the king shockingly bows before them. He promises to find them a way back eventually, but begs that these heroes help him. In the meantime, Suzune finally stops fangirling over being a hero and wonders why the king calls them heroes without knowing anything about them. A little girl named Welchi explains that hero summoning is designed to select accomplished individuals. She explains that hearing the bells ring before being summoned indicates that they are heroes. That's actually some pretty bad news for our boy Ken, as he was the only one that didn't hear ringing, and he wonders if he was brought there by accident. Welchi then takes him to a crystal ball that measures their magical abilities. Kazuka wonders if Ken's really okay with this, but our boy is just fine since Welchi told him that he might be able to use magic even though he isn't a hero. Kazuka thinks Ken should be more upset, but our boy isn't a whiny little dweeb like him, and he points out that they should try to be like the overly excited Suzune. She is the first to be tested, and the color of the crystal indicates her affinity for thunder magic. As if that weren't amazing enough, she also has a ton of mana. Suzune couldn't be any happier, and it is now Kazuki's turn. This guy barely touches the thing, and Welchi is amazed when the crystal turns white. It's light magic, and Suzune is certain that it means he can shoot laser beams out of his eyes, or even better, he might be able to use swords made of light. Ken points out that Kazuki is in a weeb like her and probably has no clue what she is talking about, but she scolds him for having a sharp tongue. Suzune realizes that she likes his tongue that way, and Ken's perfect image of Suzune is getting ruined every time she talks. Well, she explains that light magic is incredibly rare and that few people can use it. Light repels evil, so its power is unparalleled against demons. The bar has been set pretty high by the first two, but now it's our protagonist's turn. Ken hopes that he will at least have the tiniest bit of power, as this humble kid just hopes to help Suzune and Kazuki any way he can. He is glad when his crystal actually changes color, and everyone thinks it's a soothing color. A look at Welchi paints a totally different picture, as she is shocked by this color change and instantly drags Ken away without saying a single thing. Welchi urgently takes him to the king and explains that the other two have great abilities. However, she is there for something more important. The king has a good chuckle as he jokes about Ken having an affinity for dark magic. But this guy shuts up when Welchi reveals that the crystal ball turned green. The guards are even shocked, and while she begins to finally say what that means, King Lloyd stops her, as he doesn't even want her to utter those words, and Ken begins to wonder if his magic affinity is really that bad. Our boy just has to remain confused, as the king quickly demands that Ken be taken away from the castle as quickly as possible. They try to think of the safest place to send them, and Ken wonders if he's really that dangerous. He asks if anyone else has the same magic, and there just so happens to be another person. It's a certain girl, but the king doesn't even want her name to be spoken. Unfortunately for King Coward, this girl barges in. Everyone is terrified beyond belief as we find out that her name is Rose, and she wants to know if the heroes have been summoned. The king was really hoping that she would take the day off, but Rose would never do such a thing. She questions if Ken was a hero, but King Lloyd explains that he's just some nerd who got teleported there by accident. This guy desperately tries to hide the truth and tells her that Ken is super ordinary. Rose introduces herself to Ken as the captain of the kingdom's rescue team. But our boy feels that this angry chick is more like the type to take lives, not save them. Welchi might be a genius because she diffuses the situation and offers to take Rose to the real heroes in the crystal room. Unfortunately, Ken's an idiot who can't read the room and asks the king what his green crystal meant. Rose is still in hearing distance, so everyone is terrified by what's about to happen.
でもまだ魔法のこと聞いてないです。
あの緑色、何の属性なんですか？
緑色と言ったか。
はい。
Ken confirms that his ball is green, and Rose tells the king that she will be borrowing the boy. The king decides that he must act quickly, and he urgently tells Welchie to get Ken away from her. Welchie uses some kind of bubble magic to quickly get him out of there, but Rose instantly takes off after him. Welchie sends our non-hero, Sky, high, but Rose is able to get to him almost immediately. She is crazy powerful as she destroys the bubble and rapidly captures Ken. Everyone is left with their mouths open from shock like a bunch of guppy fish, and Rose tells the king that she will turn the boy into a full-fledged healing magic user. Welchie can't handle what will happen moving forward, so she faints, and the king begs Rose to stop. He knows that she has been searching for other healing magic users, but he tries to explain that Ken was really dragged into this by accident. His useless words go completely ignored, as the two are already gone. Back in the castle, Ken's useless new friends have just been sitting on their stupid hands this entire time, but they are shocked to hear that Ken was taken away. Welchie explains that his life is not going to be ended, but it's still really bad news. He was taken to the rescue team just beyond the castle town. Healing magic users are extremely rare, and the crazy lady who took him is one of them. She intends to train Ken as her subordinate. No matter how hard Sujun uses her brain, she can't see how this is a problem. Luckily, Welchie explains it to her like she's a toddler and reveals that Rose's training methods are extremely unorthodox. At her base, Rose explains that Ken only has the potential to become a healing magic user, so that is why she brought him to the rescue team. This will be his home, and she calls on her boys. Ken was terrified by these extreme dudes, and Rose told them that they would be looking after him. She tells them to play nice, but these guys look like lunatics and introduce themselves. Ken fears the worst in every possible situation, as he wonders if he's actually making some kind of offering and if he's being sacrificed to these monsters. Rose tells them not to scare Ken, but she is the most terrifying of all. The boys try to explain that this is them being nice, but Ken doesn't think these brutes know what being nice means. Rose explains that while these meatheads are her subordinates, they are not healing magic users. There are 2 other healing magic users on the rescue team, but they usually work elsewhere. It's time to get to business. So Rose explains that she will beat the knowledge of how to use healing magic deep into his tiny little brain. Ken seems to be in a permanent state of disbelief, as every fiber of his being is telling him to stay away from this insane person. Ken uses his Sunday morning church voice to ask if he could learn from another teacher, but Rose ignores the nerd and tells him that training starts tomorrow. She tells the boot named Tong to let Ken stay in his room and instructs them to eat dinner before getting some rest. These guys hit Ken with the brutal reality when she leaves. As they tell him that he is screwed, Rose will be training him herself, and she's going to put him through hell. They say hell might be the least of his worries, and they may have had to have a good laugh at our non-hero's expense. That night, Ken wonders what will happen to him, but he finally shows a bit of optimism, as he is certain that things will be okay. He might be wrong, however, as we see that not even Rose knows what will happen. I appreciate you viewing my anime recap, Unruly Family. Please let me know what you think about the wrong way to use healing magic by liking, sharing, subscribing, and leaving a comment.